My parents, determined to prove I wouldn't be a freeloader, mandated that any expenditure over 50 yuan required a detailed report. Then came the day of the food poisoning incident. In a panic, I swiped Dad's credit card for 1,500 yuan. When I finally came down from the surgery table, there were over a dozen missed calls from Mom and Dad. Who authorized you to spend so much money? We're not raising you to be a leech. They promptly blocked all my cards. Penniless and still weak, I had to trek 20 kilometers back home. Only when I reached the gate did I realize the mansion was sparkling like a palace. My parents and older brother were throwing a birthday party for their adopted daughter, Charlotte. The cake alone was a custom-made masterpiece costing 2.99 million. I didn't resort to my usual outbursts. Instead, I wrote an IOU, turned away and left. Standing alone in the biting wind by the window, I watched the grand party unfolding. Warm yellow light spilled out, only to be swallowed by the cold night. My hands gripped the snow-covered windowsill, like a thief peering into another's warmth. Yet I was their biological daughter. The cake-cutting ceremony began, and I saw my brother and fiancé, Ethan, wheeling out a cake taller than a person. It was the 2.99 million Black Swan custom cake. I froze. I had been reprimanded for swiping Dad's credit card for just 1,500 yuan. I'd walked 20 kilometers, hadn't eaten for 10 hours, all because I was broke. And yet here I was, the biological daughter, outside starving and freezing, while Charlotte, in a Chanel gown, was basking in family affection and making a birthday wish. A sharp pain stabbed my stomach. I grabbed a handful of snow, the icy shock keeping me from fainting. Pushing the door open, I walked into the party. Nobody noticed me. Everyone was twirling in the ballroom in their formal dresses. No one spared a glance at a student fresh out of the hospital. I grabbed a small piece of cake and was planning to head back to my room when I bumped into someone. It was my fiancé, Ethan. He'd clearly stepped in front of me on purpose, his face clouded with displeasure. "Where have you been? Doesn't a big sister know it's her little sister's birthday today?" He glanced at my school uniform, frowning. "Not even in a formal dress? Are you deliberately embarrassing Charlotte?" My stomach was empty and my mood sour. I couldn't help but sneer. "So what? The party is going on whether I'm here or not. Besides, you know very well they only ordered a dress for Charlotte. Since that incident, any spending over 50 yuan required my report, let alone a formal dress." He paused, as if just realizing the truth, but it was a fleeting moment. "Charlotte was looking for you before the party started. You made her worry, you owe her an apology." "Looking for me?" I chuckled, turning to Charlotte on the sofa, my smile sardonic. How is it I didn't receive a single message from her? Instead, I had made numerous calls to the house, only for them to be inexplicably hung up. Charlotte seemed to have noticed me, suddenly rushing to hug me. "Sister, where were you? I was so worried about you." Her voice was full of worry and grievance, as if she were the one who had just had surgery. My parents and brother frowned. "Why weren't you around when Charlotte was looking for you? Why are you coming here now when everyone is enjoying themselves?" I smiled bitterly. My parents could see the credit card payment had been made to the hospital, but not one of them asked how I was doing. Instead, they were all blaming me for ruining Charlotte's fun. Ethan said in a cold voice. "Nianchu apologized to Charlotte." "Apologize?" I looked at Charlotte. "Why should I apologize?" "Nianchu." My brother started to say something, but I cut him off. "I haven't eaten all day. I had surgery alone. I walked 20 kilometers alone, and none of you ask how I am. Instead, you are all forcing me to apologize to Charlotte." Then I pointed at Charlotte's nose. "If it weren't for her giving me that fruit, I wouldn't have been poisoned." Slap. A sharp slap landed on my face. The crisp sound echoed through the hall. Everyone stopped moving, even the band paused their music. Ethan had slapped me to the floor. My head was ringing. "Have you forgotten that you almost killed Charlotte back then?" he shouted, fury in his eyes. "She didn't press charges. How dare you point fingers at her on her 18th birthday?" Everyone was staring at me, collapsed on the ground. The housekeeper, Mrs. Liu, looked at my parents, then at me. Seeing no one making a move to help, she anxiously reached out a hand to me. "Miss," she whispered. My eyes stung with tears. After 18 years, my family's love for me didn't even measure up to what Mrs. Lu offered. They let everyone see my humiliation. My mother's eyes were red as she scolded. Nianchu, we raised you for 18 years. Can't you consider our feelings and not make things difficult for your sister? Ethan glanced down at me, subtly pulling Charlotte behind him. My brother and father were filled with disgust. Ungrateful creature. You almost killed Charlotte back then. Your sister's coming-of-age ceremony is such an important day, and all you do is recklessly spend money on my credit card for your pleasure. What else are you good for? We don't earn money for you to suck it from us. My hand trembled as I grabbed Mrs. Lu's hand. Mrs. Lu, can you get me paper and a pen, please? When I was 7, my parents had brought back a little girl and named her Charlotte. Her parents had died saving mine, so my parents adopted her. Charlotte was frail and often sick, and I cared for her diligently. One day, she came to me crying, saying she had lost the money our parents had given her. Afraid of being disliked, she begged me to take the blame. I agreed. I thought, my sister is already so sickly, and not our parents' own child. If they disliked her because of it, they may throw her away. How will she survive? But I didn't know the money was for Charlotte's surgery. When I confessed, my brother found the latest laptop in my room. The Charlotte that had been pitifully begging suddenly threw herself into my parents' arms, crying, "How can sister use my money to buy herself a laptop? Does sister hate me for taking away mom and dad's love, Wawa?" She suddenly coughed up blood and fainted. My parents frantically borrowed money to send her to the hospital. After she was safe, I was locked up for 3 days. After that, my spending was strictly controlled. Even as our company grew and money was no issue, I had to apply for approval for any purchases exceeding 50 yuan. I had explained. I had fought back, but nobody would listen. Charlotte also knelt at my feet, crying, "I am so sorry, I was just afraid of being abandoned by mom and dad. Please don't blame me." But she would later pretend to be sick to frame me again. After more than a decade, I was completely exhausted. With Mrs. Lu's help, I sat on a sofa and wrote an IOU for 1,500 yuan. I pushed it in front of them. "Don't worry, I will pay this back with interest. But after I pay it back, we are done." Hearing me wanting to cut ties, Charlotte's eyes sparkled. My mother was startled. "Nianchu, how can you say that? We are your family. Why talk about paying things back?" I looked at her coldly. She was the one who had insisted on the report. My father said with a cold face, "Don't mind her. She wants to pay? Then let her pay." I didn't back down. Staring at him, he changed his tone. "But you think you can pay back everything we spent raising you with 1,500 yuan? If you truly have the guts, pay us back for raising you in a year. If you can't, then kneel in front of everyone and apologize to Charlotte." Everyone was watching. Many assumed I was some random girl causing trouble, while the one in the formal dress, protected by my brother and Ethan, was clearly the lady of the house. I was the biological daughter of this family, yet I was now everyone's joke. Mrs. Lu tried to smooth things over, smiling. "Sir, Miss is still in high school, how can you have her?" "Fine." I stood up, extending my fist. "Not 1 year before graduation, I will pay you everything back, then we will be done." Then I looked at Ethan. "Including you." Ethan frowned slightly, but he didn't say anything. He just bumped fists with me. After the agreement, I immediately rented a room at school. That night, I dug up a post I had bookmarked in the school forum. It was a tutoring ad, promising 100,000 yuan per point increase in a student's test scores. But oddly, no one had taken it. The comments were piling up. "Although it's tempting, the person you would be tutoring is Liam Cheyenne." Hearing that, I have lost all my courage. I'd take it for anyone but him. Liam Cheyenne was a notorious school bully. Many people had tried, driven by the promise of 100,000 yuan per point, but all had come back crying. Liam was said to have a deep-rooted issue with studying, but there was no other way. If I didn't raise the money quickly, I'd have to kneel and beg them to pay for my university education. I took the job and went to Liam's house the next day. The moment I opened his bedroom door, a bucket of cold water was poured over me. Luckily, I had anticipated it, taking a step back to dodge it. "Tisk, it's a girl." A light laugh came from behind me. I turned to see Liam leaning against the wall, arms crossed, a look of mild regret at his failed plan. Well, since it's a girl, I won't bully you. He pushed open his door and walked in, sitting at the end of a long marble table. He pulled out a chair for me. Sit. As soon as I sat down, the chair leg broke and I fell to the ground. Liam, who was just serious, burst out laughing, slapping the table. No, I told you I wouldn't bully you and you believed me. He picked up his phone and opened a video call, pointing it at me. Brothers, the new tutor fell. Ha ha ha. Look at the mess she is. Hey, my brother is asking if you can't even walk, how will you teach him? The boys on the phone were teasing. I grabbed the table and stood up, pulled over a new chair and sat down, spreading out the test paper. Do this test first, I'll check your level. Liam's smile faded. You're not leaving even after all this? I pointed to the test. Do the questions. He closed the video call, then resting his chin in his hand, he leaned closer. Why are you so persistent? For 100,000 yuan per point. He was silent, then he sighed. Okay, sorry, I did all that to make you leave. I won't bully you anymore, I'll give you 10,000, you can leave. No, I said seriously, looking at him. With my ability, I can definitely get your scores up by this much, at the very least. I stretched out 5 fingers. He asked, 5 points. 50 points. Liam laughed like he had heard a joke. To be honest, more talented tutors have tried and failed. They've all run away crying. Do you know why? I blinked. Because I wouldn't listen to them. You won't be any different. I will make you listen. He laughed and took out his phone. Okay, so let's do this. Hearing the Timmy prompt, I was stunned. You need to study. What are you doing? He did not look up. I know my parents will pay you the basic fee. We can just sit here and do what you want and it'll be a win-win. With that, he put on his headphones, ignoring anything I said. I quietly clenched my fist. Although his parents would indeed pay me a basic fee, I needed to earn enough to pay them back and fund my university expenses. No matter what, Liam, I would get him on board. 5 million, I would get it no matter what. After observing him for a bit, I figured his weak spot was games. I moved behind him and started watching his gameplay. His performance was impressive, I had to say. But the opponent was also a pro player. Shit. I'm dying. One last move, he said anxiously. I grabbed his phone. Let me. He took off his headphones and stared at me, clearly surprised. You play too? I grinned. I'm an expert. Then with a stylish maneuver, I successfully killed the opposing archer. Liam's mouth dropped open. He quickly took one headphone off and put it on me. For the next 10 minutes, under his admiring gaze, I successfully killed all our teammates. The chat box was going crazy. How did the Levi turn bad? You were doing so well a while ago, and now you're throwing the game. Why don't you throw in your mother's grave? You are throwing in the promotion round. Reported. Oh. As the word defeat appeared, he had lost a star. Liam's face darkened. Are you messing with me? I pointed to the broken chair and grinned. I have a strong sense of vengeance. Liam's expression was one of disgust. I drew closer, smiling. It's okay, how about you do this test and tomorrow I'll help you win them back? He said nothing. I took out my phone. If you don't agree, I'll go online myself and who knows, you might run into me. That would be, well. You're so annoying. He snatched the test paper and started reading it. 2 hours passed, and he hadn't written a single word. When Liam's parents returned home to check the progress, he just tossed the blank paper. Here is the result. I looked embarrassed at his parents. I'm sorry, there hasn't been any progress today. I won't take the fee. That's great. Liam's mother's eyes widened and she grabbed my hand. Liam's father took out his phone and gave me 5,000 yuan right away. I've given you extra. If you can keep my son quiet, then you're in charge from now on. Liam snorted and poured himself some water. I was shocked by this turn of events. Liam's mother was nearly crying with excitement. You were actually able to make this kid sit for 2 hours. The other dozen tutors couldn't even last 20 minutes. I don't care. You have to come again next week. We've made our decision. I was speechless. With the 5,000 yuan from the Liangs, my life had instantly become richer. I, who had only dared to eat the budget meals on the first floor, could now occasionally go to the second floor for some stir-fried dishes. Although, I could treat myself to a Western meal on the third floor. I stubbornly held back. Not only to save money but also because the third floor was usually frequented by people like Charlotte and Ethan. I didn't want to see them. But what I didn't expect was that, even if I avoided them, they would come looking for me. One afternoon, I was about to enter the classroom when someone grabbed my arm from behind. Ethan scanned my newly changed uniform and the snacks in my hand, his expression darkening. "So it was you who took Charlotte's money. What are you talking about?" I frowned. Charlotte stood behind Ethan, her eyes red. "Sister, I know you are short on money. I can talk to Mom and Dad, but can you not take my life-saving money? It's for my medicine. How would I know where your money is?" "You knew. I told you my money was usually in the inner pocket of my bag. That day, no one was in the classroom but you." "You're lying." I was getting worked up. "You never told me that. And I was never in your classroom." Passers-by began to whisper. No wonder Nianchu has been flaunting her wealth, so it was actually Charlotte's life-saving money? I knew it. I thought she really got to Liam. Of course. "Shoo! Liam's here." The murmurings ceased, and a familiar figure strolled over. Liam raised an eyebrow, spotting the scene, and leaned down to me. "Well, look at this, the retaliatory Nianchu got cornered?" He still remembered that game where I made him lose the star? I gritted my teeth. "Shut up, jerk." He laughed and walked into the classroom. "Hey!" I started, but Ethan abruptly spun me around. "Do you know what you're doing? Charlotte almost died because of you. Yet she still defends you. And you are enjoying yourself with her life-saving money. Do you deserve to be her sister? Charlotte won't press charges, but I will. Either return the money or kneel now and apologize." I sneered. "Impossible. She claims that was life-saving money? If I really took it, how is it she isn't dead yet?" With that, I turned to leave. But in the next moment, my arm was grabbed and yanked back forcefully. Immediately, a crisp slap landed on my face, causing me to fall to the ground. A figure by the corner of the room stopped in their tracks. My cheek felt swollen, burning, and numb. Ethan stood looking down at me. "Do you have any idea what you're saying? I really regret that I was betrothed to you. If we could have waited 2 more years, I would never have gotten engaged to you." He grabbed my collar, roughly yanking my clothes. "Nianchu, I will not. Let Charlotte die. Even though I bought her medicine, I won't let you bully her even a little bit. You will return all her money now." With that, he tore open my jacket, and the buttons flew far away. I struggled. "Let go." But he held me tightly, preventing me from moving. I could hear the whispers of the other students. "Although it's not nice, Nianchu is just too much. We all know that Charlotte has congenital heart disease. Shouldn't she be taking care of her sister? Yeah, if I was Ethan, I would treat her the same. That is life-saving money." What was Nianchu thinking? Stealing her sister's life-saving money. Bam! A fist landed hard on Ethan's face, knocking him back several steps. Charlotte rushed to his aid. "Ethan!" She turned to scold whoever it was, but stopped at the sight of the person. Liam stood in front of me, looking down at them. "The money is from me. Got a problem?" Charlotte was shocked. "Liam? You?" Liam ignored her, turning, crouching down, and gently touched my face. "Does it hurt?" I nodded forcefully, tears falling onto the back of his hand. He paused. "Hey, don't cry, it's okay, I got him off you, didn't I?" I didn't speak, I just kept crying. He gritted his teeth, took my arm, and half carried me to my feet. "All right, I'll take you to the school clinic to get the swelling down, don't you cry." "Wait," Ethan called after him. But it was me he was looking at. For some reason, I thought I saw a complexity of emotions in his eyes. He looked at me. "He said the money is from him, is that true?" I wiped my tears. "What is it to you?" "Nianchu." He took 2 steps closer, but Charlotte pulled his arm. "Ethan." Liam turned impatiently. "She's tutoring me, so I'm paying her. If you're so suspicious, why don't you go look if the money was actually stolen, or if it was hidden by someone with ulterior motives?" He shot a meaningful glance at Charlotte, then with a sneer pulled me away. On the way to the clinic, Liam was walking with me, I was behind him. He didn't look back. "You must earn money, is it because of them?" I hummed a nasal yes. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't want you to look down on me." After I said that, tears started falling to the ground. The hand that was holding mine paused. Liam turned to frantically wipe away the tears in my eyes. I wouldn't, doing this just makes me. He paused, seeming to swallow something, then changed the topic. Do you still have that test paper? I looked up at him. He looked away, trying to hide his embarrassment. I want to know my true level. I wiped away my tears. I know you don't like studying, I won't force you. There are other people who need tutors, No. He seemed flustered. Realizing his slip-up, he coughed. Graduation is approaching. I should start being serious. Really? I stared at him with tear-filled eyes. His Adam's apple bobbed. Yeah. I wiped away my tears and took the test paper out from my bag. He probably didn't know that, the moment I lowered my head, my lips were almost touching my ears with a grin. Liam, you're too green. Did you really think I unintentionally provoked Ethan and was unexpectedly slapped? No. The moment I saw you walk to the classroom, I had already set the stage. I didn't expect it to be this effective. 5 million, here I come. After that week, Liam really started studying. His parents, who thought just making him sit still was an accomplishment, went to the family graveyard to burn paper money, claiming it was a blessing from their ancestors. Of course, my tutoring fees were also raised, and I could frequently have a decent meal on the second floor. On the weekend, I planned to go home to get the last few things I left at home. But when I opened the door, everyone was there. Mrs. Liu looked alarmed when she saw me. She stepped forward and whispered, "Miss, why are you here? Quick, leave." But as soon as she finished, Dad's voice came from behind, cold as ice. "I was looking for you. It seems you know your place and you are back." I was stunned. Not only were my parents, brother and Charlotte there, even Ethan was there. Mother was sobbing on the sofa, and Charlotte looked pale. Ethan sat next to Charlotte, his face cold and silent. My brother stepped forward coldly, and Mrs. Liu anxiously reached out. "Young master, the young lady, she..." Before she could finish, a slap landed on my face. My head jerked to the side. He looked down at me. "We asked you to pay back through proper means. Who asked you to become a sugar baby? You are ruining the Lan family's name." I was baffled. "What are you talking about?" Mother choked up. "Nianchu, you don't have to pay back if you can't. How can you become a sugar baby just to pay back? Charlotte and Ethan went to find you to bring you back to the right path. How could you make Charlotte be hospitalized?" I finally understood. After Liam stood up for me, she probably went to the hospital again to pretend to be sick, then twisted the story saying I became a sugar baby, and she only brought Ethan there to persuade me. I sneered. I was a little harsh with my words, and I regret it. I stepped forward and looked down at her. If it weren't for other things, I should have moved on my hands that day. Then I slapped Charlotte across the face. "Nianchu." My brother was shocked. He lifted his hand to grab me, but I ducked to the side and kicked him in the stomach. Dad slammed his hand on the table and stood up, grabbing me. "You want to rebel?" Seeing his fist flying toward my face, I didn't bother pretending anymore. Grabbing his fist, I pushed him back forcefully, making him fall on the sofa. "Honey!" Mom cried. Ethan pulled me from behind. "Nianchu!" Slap. I hit his face with a backhand. "Who allowed you to touch me?" Dad grit his teeth. "You ungrateful thing. If I raised a dog for 18 years, it would wag its tail at me. You are so ungrateful." I sneered. "Raised me? Did you really raise me?" Then I took out a stack of banknotes from my bag. I neatly stacked them on the table. 15 stacks, totaling 150,000. "This is to repay you for your kindness." My parents and brother were stunned. Dad frowned. "Impossible. We raised you for 18 years. How could it only be 150,000? I smiled. "Ever since you thought I stole Charlotte's life-saving money when I was 7, you've only given me 300 yuan a month, and it never increased even in high school. 12 months a year, that's 3,600 yuan. Over 18 years, that would be 64,800. I know you spent more on me before the age of 7. But we were poor before I turned 10, so you didn't spend that much. Even if you add all of that money, it's not more than 100,000. I took out a stack of reports. These are all the expense reports I submitted for any expenditure over 50 yuan over the past 10 years. You thought I was a gold digger, so none of them were approved. I could only take 50 yuan, and there were 32 of them, totaling 1,600 yuan. I have also been living in this house for the past 18 years, so let's consider this my rent. My bedroom is an attic conversion, at a rate of 2,000 a month. Over the past 18 years that's 36,000. As for my tuition, I took out a student loan. And for my food, I didn't really eat here. Add everything, it won't amount to more than 10,000. With everything, 150,000 is more than enough. Oh right. I remembered something else and counted out another 1,500 yuan from my wallet, putting them separately aside. Oh, I almost forgot, this is the 1,500 from the last surgery. With that, I pushed all my money forward. The kindness of raising me is paid back today. From today on we are done. Impossible. Dad looked at the pile of money, mumbling to himself. Impossible, we raised you for 18 years, how is it only this little money? I put the expense reports I have submitted over the years in front of him. His eyes suddenly turned red. Mom's tears were now falling, grabbing his arm. Honey, did we really only spend this little money on her? My brother flipped through the reports repeatedly. Buying medicine for colds, buying a scarf, buying a small cake for a birthday. Those reports were crumpled in his hands. Perhaps they had just realized that what they spent on me in 18 years wasn't even equal to Charlotte's cake. The atmosphere was heavy. I grabbed my bag and turned to leave. Suddenly a hand grabbed my arm. I turned. Ethan was looking at me. Where are you going? Back to school. Wait. He tightened his grip. My parents want to see you soon. Ethan. I pried his hand off. You bumped fists with me. Now that I paid you back, the engagement is also over. Nianchu. Mom spoke. That was a joke. We didn't actually want you to pay back. She quickly beckoned to Mrs. Liu. Hurry and give her money back. I backed away, looking coldly at her. You say that because I paid you back. If I hadn't paid you back, I know you would make me kneel and apologize to Charlotte. Nianchu. My brother's voice was husky. We won't ask you for reports anymore. Stay here. Let's eat together. Dad had also realized something. Oh right, has your 18th birthday already passed? It's alright, we can celebrate it for you tonight. We'll get that same cake Charlotte ate for you. What style would you like? Charlotte also quickly agreed, acting sweet. Yes, sister. I like their flavors. I can recommend a few. What flavor do you like? Everyone was looking at me with anticipation. Yet they didn't even know my preferences after all these years. But they knew Charlotte's by heart. The sudden guilt made me feel nauseous. I grabbed my bag and turned to leave. Nianchu. Mom cried, running after me. It's my fault. I shouldn't have suggested you have to do reports. I apologize, and I'll give you the same amount of money. Don't go, please. She pulled my hand and looked left and right. What happened with the surgery you were talking about? How are you now? Is 1,500 enough? Mrs. Liu. Quickly. Make some chicken soup for Miss to replenish her health. Dad had also stood up. How about we take you to the hospital now? Don't bother. I coldly pulled my hand away. I don't need it anymore. I opened the door, walked out, and never looked back. I didn't go back home. My parents and brother would often wait to pick me up at the school gates, but each time the teacher relayed their messages, I would refuse, saying that I was busy studying. Sometimes I'd see their car still parked at the school gates late at night, and when they'd see me they'd show a hint of anticipation. Whenever that happened, I would just turn and leave. Ethan would visit me at the classroom's door every now and then, often bringing me small gifts. He would look at me. Nianchu, I don't have anything to do with Charlotte. The fiancé that I've always had in mind is you. Oh really? Liam passed by and shoved all of the presents back to him. Do you dare say that in front of Charlotte? Ethan lowered his eyes. She's in the hospital. I was stunned. He explained. After you left, we were anxious to find you, but her old illness relapsed. Actually, I can see that she was faking it. She always thought that you took her life-saving money, so she thought what she did was acceptable. That time we ignored her, she actually cut her wrists. I closed my eyes. Perhaps that's how my family thought as well. But not one of them had investigated the truth. Then you should go take care of her, instead of sucking up to me. With that, I turned to enter the classroom. He wanted to say something else, but Liam blocked him. Sorry, buddy. Nianchu still has to tutor me. Don't waste her time. With that, he closed the classroom door. Time passed to after the college entrance exams. On the day the results were released, I was with Liam and his parents, staring at the computer. The results were beyond what I expected. Thought he would only improve by 50 points, but this kid improved by 210 points. 2 points away from 700. So this kid had been hiding his true potential this whole time. Even fooling his own parents? I counted on my fingers. 210 points. 21 million? Why did you hire a tutor if you're so good? He smiled. It's just not where my interests lie, but... He glanced at me. It wouldn't be bad if I went to the same university as you, so I guess I had to show some of my true potential. He patted my head. No one celebrated your 18th birthday for you. These 21 million will be my gift to you. I waved my hands. No need. 5 million is enough. I don't want you to become poor. But he laughed. Don't worry. Even if I had 750 points, they would still be able to afford it. Liam's mom went to the family's graveyard to pray to their ancestors that very day. Then she gave me a gold card and a black card to her son. You two worked hard, go on a trip. Go anywhere you want. I don't have to look after my children anymore. After saying that, she packed her bags and gleefully went on a trip overseas with Liam's dad. I did plan to travel after the college entrance exams. But I didn't expect that Liam would join me. For the past 2 months, calls from my family didn't stop. I blacklisted them all. On reporting day, those familiar faces were waiting for me at the airport. Mom's eyes were red. Nianchu, we sent Charlotte away. She cut her wrists, the injury was serious and she didn't even take the exams, but we still sent her away. You please come back? I looked at them coldly. No. My brother and dad were flustered. Nianchu, we know we were wrong. From now on you'll be the only young miss in the Lan family. We will give you any amount of money you want, okay? Too late. I didn't need it anymore. Be it family love or money. I thought if they had done all this a little earlier I would have turned back. But sometimes once things were missed, they were just missed. I will never be the daughter of the Lan family again. I turned and followed Liam on the plane. After the plane took off, they still refused to leave for a long time. I stared at the place. They were standing through the window. Liam turned my chin and stuffed a piece of orange into my mouth. Don't look, it's boring. I bit into the orange. He was right. My future was bright and full of possibilities.